It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week, starring special guest star Mr. Dean Krippaehne. And thank you very much, fake audience. Thank you, fake band. Hello, real audience. I'm waving. Oh, yeah, they can see me. That's right. And there they are. And hello, Dean. Welcome to the big show.
Hello. Thanks.
I've never done a show with earbuds in, and feels a little. I feel weird. Anyway, yeah. I'm really excited about this show. I've been friends with Dean for, I don't know, like 15 years already or something. And not only is he the nicest guy in the world, he's admirable on many levels as a musician, as a business person, as an instrumental composer, as a songwriter, entrepreneur, yeah, all that stuff. Anyway, I'm going to read you a little bit of his bio because some of the people watching the show will be watching it months, if not years from now. So let me fill them in on who you are and what you do. Dean Krippaehne is a veteran songwriter, musician, author, artist, film and TV music producer. I'm leaving words out just to keep it interesting. His music has been heard on hundreds of TV shows, film and new media around the world, including The Oprah Winfrey Show, Late Night with Seth Meyers, Scorpion, Duck Dynasty, Parenthood, The Today Show, Biography A&E, The Vampire Diaries, Lucky Dog, One Life to Live, T-Mobile, and Amazon Connect, just to name a few. He's also earned gold and platinum records as a songwriter and has decades of experience in the music industry, founding both Seattle's Tri-West Recording Studios and All Screen Music, as well as co-founding the advertising company Spectrum and partnering in the tech company Next Channel. He's the author of the Amazon best-selling books, which I'm going to try and hold up and read at the same time. And there you go. Yeah. It's weird because I've got a split screen today, so I don't have a lot of real estate to do this in. Anyway, Demystifying the Cue, which I'm holding in my hand. It's the one with the gray cover. Demystifying the Genre, and Write, Submit, Forget, and Repeat, which is about 12 feet away from me right now. So if I go get it, I'm going to pull out my earbuds, so I'm not going to go get it. But I've got to tell you, if you want to do instrumentals or songs for film and TV, you really need to own those two books in particular. They've changed a lot of lives, and I cannot recommend them highly enough, and I don't make a friggin' penny if you buy them, so go buy them or else. Got it? Just being serious. Anyway, no, they really are that good. I've actually read each of those books probably 3 times. And I've had literally dozens of people send me emails thanking me for recommending them. So without any further ado, let's welcome Dean to the show. I'm nervous because we're doing a live, I don't know what you call it, remote, using a split screen today and the aforementioned earbuds. So the program today is, here's what we're going to do is... Okay, Dean and I are going to do a little Q&A to begin. And then the second part of the show, we're going to play some of the cues that are actually featured in the aforementioned book. And we're going to talk about those cues. And then for the last third of the show, we're going to listen to your cues. And Dean is going to tell you what's wonderful about them and what you could do to maybe make them a little better. So let's start out. I'm going to hit the bullet points that went out in the email the other day. And I asked the people that got the email if they know the difference between an instrumental and an instrumental cue. I know, but I'm keeping it a secret. So I'm going to ask Dean if he can explain to you guys what the differences are.
An instrumental and an instrumental cue.
I should have asked you if you knew the answers to these.
I don't know. No,
we're off to a great start.
An instrumental, any song, you could write a song that could be an instrumental. A cue really oftentimes has less, I think, active melody because it does have a melody, but sometimes it's just underscore. But as I've talked about in a lot of my workshops, too much melody, which you might have in a regular instrumental song. Too much melody can often conflict with actors' dialogue, and that's the thing we want to avoid doing music for, because most of our music's going to get used behind dialogue. Some of it, once in a while, we get lucky and we get a foreground song and make a bunch of money, and that's wonderful. But most of it's going to be used behind dialogue or to set up the next scene. And so, a regular instrumental can work. It can work, but often you want to use a little bit less melody, I would say. So where am I wrong? What's your definition?
Well, no, you're right about everything you said. By the way, Cass says that you're a little bit hot on your level, so you may want to bring it down a pinch more, please.
All right.
My take is that a cue is written in one of several forms, although there aren't exact forms that you have to absolutely follow. But cues serve a different purpose, and much of the time, not all the time, but oftentimes they're used in reality shows, and they're used just in little short sections. It's extremely rare that a cue would be heard in its entirety. It's like almost never, but not entirely never. Yeah. Whereas an instrumental that is not constructed so much like a cue would be primarily an A section with maybe a B section thrown in the middle for a little variation, a little interest. An instrumental is, like Dean said, a song that has the vocal popped out, and they're used for different things. Like an instrumental might be used in the background of you and I go out to dinner and we're talking about how much we love our wives and what we forgot to buy them for Valentine's Day and stuff like that. And there could be a piano in the background, or a small complement of string players, something, but it's going to run for 2 or 3 minutes, and it's just basically wallpaper in the background. Whereas a cue can be wallpaper, but might actually be used to make a transition or to punctuate something. Yeah. So I don't know that anybody's ever written down a hard definition for them, but as you do this for a living, you get to feel the nuance and understand it better.
Yeah, there's really with the cue is just like you said, that it has an A section and a B section, usually, sometimes not. Whereas I did a lot of instrumental songs for Muzak, environment, smooth jazz type of stuff, which I got, again, a deal I got from Taxi. But those were full songs. And they were just happened to be instrumental songs, and with a verse doing whatever I wanted to do on guitar, keyboard, a chorus, and a solo section, and I mean it was really like a song. But those don't a cue. Yeah, cue's got that A section that starts out and builds, and then it just keeps building the emotion. And then it might go to a B section where the emotion gets even bigger. And I think that's the key to them is instead of writing songs, we're writing moods. We're trying to enhance the mood of whatever the directors are trying to accomplish in their visual.
I think that's a great analogy or a great explanation. Bev Niven asked, how long should a cue be? So why don't you give her the range on that?
I have 2 answers. My first answer is it should be whatever the publisher wants. I have publishers that ask for different time lengths, but in general, 2 minutes, give or take. It can be 1 minute and 55 seconds if that's where it musically is cool, or it can be 2 minutes and 10 seconds. But sometimes publishers will ask for it to be a full 3 minutes. I've worked with publishers that say, just give me 90 seconds. Because as you said, Michael, if I look at my cue sheets that come through ASCAP, I'm with ASCAP, so many of the cues are 17 seconds, 23 seconds, 53 seconds is a great one, and sometimes once in a while you get stuff that's a minute 10. I have had stuff that has played for 2 minutes, but the publisher that I work with that says just 90 seconds, I said, well, what if they want 2 minutes? He says, oh, they'll just cut it and loop it if they can make it longer. So 2 minutes. But if I was talking to anybody who hasn't done it before, I would say shoot for 2 minutes. and then whatever the publisher wants.
Yeah, we occasionally will get somebody that'll say, yeah, send us cues that are like, 30 seconds. And
Yeah.
we actually say to them, are you sure? And they go, yeah. So you know what? It's better to have too much than too little. Somehow it's easier to edit length out than, when you loop it, it just sounds loopy sometimes.
Yeah.
A related subject, a developmental arc in the land of cues. Can you explain what a developmental arc is to the uninitiated or uninformed?
I think what you're talking about, at least the way I'm reading it, is whatever mood you're going for. If you're going for a anxious tension track, anxiety, anxious, scared, fear, wherever you want to start off relatively sparse, as sparse as you can be, almost still capturing the mood. And then maybe every 4 or 8 measures, depending on the speed, you add another element to give it a little bit of lift, to give it a little bit to build the mood. You're building the mood because if you turn off the sound and watch any TV show, whatever the mood is, whether it's a comedy show or a drama show or anything in between, the moods, they want to build the mood. They're going to lose us if they don't build the mood. So yeah, my arc is probably every 4 to 8 measures, I just keep building. And then when I get to the B section, that automatically gives it another build, because I'll often go to, I'll often go to the 4 chord. If I'm in a dominant, like a C major, I'll go to the F chord at the B section. Could be a G chord or the 5, but that will give it another natural lift. But yeah, my arc is build, and then let the editor cut it wherever they want to cut it.
It was very instructive. I don't know if you were in the ballroom for the beginning of the Road Rally this year. When I had Laurel Ostrander, who's a very talented editor who mostly does reality TV stuff. And she she walked us through how she was picking the music, what she was thinking, what she was going for, what she needed. And then she'd play something that she thought would work against the scene and go, it really doesn't work. Oh no, I lost an ear. It really doesn't work because it doesn't have enough of a lift or enough of an emotional thing going on. So I'm going to try something else. Then she would find something else that she liked and put that in there, and then maybe edit it, and then tighten it up so that the sting on the end of the piece landed right on the end of the scene and transition to the next scene. And I think everybody in the ballroom, I think there were like 1,000 of us in the ballroom, everybody in there was like, oh, I see. They actually use the music for a purpose. It's not just, isn't that a cool piece of music? So I love that woman. I thought she was a great teacher, and it was really instructive.
Yeah, that's really, I think the other thing I'd say is wherever you start, when somebody's starting out their cue, the mood, whatever mood it is, has to be obvious from the first measure. I've cut some cues here before in my studio, and after I'm halfway through, I'll go back and listen, and I'll always go, okay, is it obvious in those first 4 to 8 beats, first 2 measures? Do I know where this is taking me? So right from the get-go, you know what the mood it is, and then build that throughout the piece. But yeah, to me it has to be. And sometimes I've just stopped and thrown the whole thing away because I can't figure out how to get that mood right from the get-go, or I get caught between moods. Is this a comedy piece or a tension piece?
Sounds to me like you've got hormonal issues going on.
Well, yeah, that too. They ain't what they used to be. Oh wait, this is a family show. Sorry.
Sometimes I digress. Do you know how to make? Actually, this is a loaded question because I know you know how to make inexpensive and sometimes even outdated sample libraries sound like $1 million. And I've got to let everybody know that Dean is the world's greatest expert at this, because we have some members that have, like $5,000 libraries, and then you listen to Dean's stuff, which he jokes all the time, the sample library is 10 years old or something, and it still sounds amazing. Why are you able to take fairly simple, fairly inexpensive, and somewhat outdated libraries and still make your stuff sound like $1 million?
I I think there's probably a couple reasons. I think one of the basic reasons is that sample libraries for the last decade have been pretty good. They just I remember coming to a road rally in 2006, and sitting in one of the main ballroom, listening to them play various members. And in 2006, there was still a lot of MIDI sounding. That's a general term for, kind of tinky sounding stuff. And man, 2007, 2008 at the Road Rally, everybody's stuff, there was almost no old school MIDI stuff sounding anymore. So, which told me that, okay, all the sample libraries are getting way better. So even if I use a 10-year-old library, or a 12-year-old library like I'm using today, it still sounds pretty good. And I think another thing that our friend Matt Hurt taught me was, it's not just buying something off the shelf, buying East-West strings or buying Omnisphere. Well, I know there's a bunch of them that are just great, and I've got a couple of them, but you've got to learn how to make those instruments sound like the real thing. I mean, you and I have both heard it. Somebody with a $3,000 string library that really hasn't learned how to articulate a string yet. And although the sounds are great, the thing just kind of clunks along. It doesn't really work. So you need to learn how to articulate the instrument. You need to learn how to. I'm doing a solo piano piece for a library. Actually, I'm doing a CD for this library. But it's a solo piano, and I'm using, it's probably a 15-year-old piece of software, Sample Tank 2. I'm using the piano, their Kawai piano in there. Why am I using that? Because I know it up and down. I can tweak it to make it sound great. So learning your instrument, learning your software is one thing. I think the other thing is just trying to play good parts, trying to be a musician. If you're a piano player, try to play good piano parts. If you're a guitar player, sometimes being both a guitar player and a piano player, it's real obvious to me when a piano player hasn't worked hard enough on making his guitar sound like a real guitar, or when a guitar player hasn't made his keyboard sound enough like a real keyboard player. So I think that's another element, is just spending that time and listening. I mean, there's a million keyboard players and guitar players and orchestras out there. Listen to what they're doing. Try to figure out how that violin is being played, and try to emulate it.
I know you talk about that so frequently in the books, that so much of this is about listening, sitting down, analyzing why things sound the way they do, why arrangements work the way they do, why certain production techniques. And I mean, when I started out in the industry, that's what I used to do. Once I was actually working in a studio labeling tape boxes and stuff, I realized that I had to be utterly consumed with my craft, and I would go home after a long day in the studio and spend hours on the floor with a pair of JBL 4311s. Can't see my hands, but toed in, pointed in at my head like a giant set of earphones, with a notepad, writing down why Bob Welch's guitar solo sounded so good and what they might have done to get that, and then researching it, because we had no Google back then, but I would look for interviews in Recording Engineer Producer magazine and find out how they did it. And after a while, it just becomes part of you. You don't have to think at it that hard. You don't have to work at it that hard. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, but it is key what you say. You've got to listen. I've got an upcoming pop project that I've got to produce and co-write on, and I've been away from pop music, straight ahead pop music. I've been away from that for almost 3 years. So in December, I told myself I'm going to start listening to pop music 2 hours every day. So faithfully for 60, 70 days now, I've listened to 2 hours of, man, I know Post Malone, Halsey, I know them up and down, inside and out. But the only way and pop music's really changed in the last couple of years. And the only way I was going to have a shot at being authentic in what I was doing was to, just surround myself with it and get it inside of me. And I'm starting to become hip to what those guys do. And man, it's different, but that's exciting to me. It's different than pop was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but cool. We get to learn something new and try to figure out how to make that drum sound like that, or make that, what they're not even using a real bass. What is that they're using, and trying to figure out that stuff. So yeah, surround yourself, listen.
It always upsets me. I literally get angry when I hear musicians say, the music sucks today. I hate what's on radio. I don't listen to that crap. But yet they want to be successful in the music industry. It's, like saying, I want to drive an Indy 500 car and win the race, but you're driving a car that was built 30 years ago. You're not going to win the race because technology has changed. Same thing as all forms of art, whether you like them or not, change. And if you want to be a contestant in that world, you need to move with the changes. And people just refuse. I understand it. We get used to what we know. We get comfortable with it. Getting out of your comfort zone is challenging, but challenge yourself.
Yeah. No, that's, I even do that on styles. I'm really familiar with jazz, and just last month I produced a jazz dinner jazz CD cues for a library, somebody we both know, but I was kind of getting stuck in the middle of it, and there's some jazz players, some taxi members that are way better than me. So I was getting stuck. I was just, oh man, I'm just repeating myself. So I went and listened. I went actually. Steve Rice and John Mazet are both great jazz players. So I just went and listened to some of their stuff. And what did they do there? Oh, I'll do that. So thanks, Steve and John Mazet, for letting me steal your work.
Please, people, don't take them seriously.
I know.
Understand, you know what? Back when I used to work in the studio, when I started my career, Criteria Studios in Miami, there were 4 studios under the roof. And we all learn from each other every day. And I've said this on the show before. I worry now. So many people are isolated in their home studios that there isn't this exchange of ideas and constant encouragement and stuff. We see it on the taxi forum a lot. But if you don't go to the forum, you are kind of isolated. So I don't call that stealing. I call it part of it, because you give and you take. I'm sure that they've learned from you, and
inspiration from everybody. Yep.
This is again a loaded question because there is no right answer, but there's a range of answers. People often say to me, "Well, how long should it take me to do a cue?" And my answer is, it depends. So, can you give the viewers kind of a range of like how long it would take you to do a solo piano, dinner jazz kind of cue, and how long means from composition to recording to, well, you wouldn't be doing stems on that one, but tagging it, exporting it, tagging it, all that stuff. How long would that take you versus, let's say, a string quartet, and then also maybe a rock piece, and then a fuller orchestral piece? Kind of a range in how long each of those might take you.
Okay, first of all, let me just say that any genre that's new to me that I really haven't produced or written a lot takes longer, because I'm trying to learn that genre. Even when something that was rock was generally familiar to me, but last year I did a CD for a company of indie rock, and of course there are many styles of indie rock, but I really wasn't hip to what indie rock. So I'm asking my taxi friends, what's the bass player doing there? So until I'd done 3 or 4 of those cues, it took me longer, and then I started getting the pattern. I started getting that down. That's true for me with any style of music. Some of the cues that I find really easy now, like a dramedy or a tension track, might have taken me 12 hours from start to finish when I was first learning how to do that and learning where my sounds were. But I could probably do a tension track in 4 hours now, unless I'm just spending time looking for that perfect sound that is one of the 80,000 songs or sounds on Omnisphere. And sometimes that'll take extra 2 hours just sorting through all those sounds. But some of the genres that I've done a lot of stuff. Way back in the Duck Dynasty days, I started doing Southern rock, and I got to where I did so many of those. I probably did 100 cues, Southern rock cues for different shows. I got to where I could do one of those in 4 hours. But when I started, I had to listen to all those old Southern rock because I'd never really played it before. Being an old guy, I was familiar with kind of the 70s Southern rock genre, but I really had to go and listen to all those Skinnerd and ZZ Top, Molly Hatchet, all those various bands at 38 Special. And okay, what are they doing? Oh, they got crunchy guitars, they got a B3 organ, they got a real drum kit, and on and on. Learn what those are and find those. Part of what takes a while at the beginning is finding that right bass sound, finding that right. It's not the composition for me so much as finding the right sounds, finding the right drum kit. But once I found those in a genre, okay, I'm going to use these 3 drum kits probably for all this Southern rock stuff and these 3 different bass sounds. And then, so yeah, I can do those in maybe 4 hours.
Once you find those sounds that are your palette for that particular genre, do you tend to set up templates and go, okay, so I just did one that was successful and I used these drums and this bass and that guitar sound. Now I can do another one that's a different mood, but basically the same sound, different chord changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do templates. And now if I've done enough of them, like with the Southern rock things that I did back in the day, I don't even need templates anymore. I just know the exact places that I'm going to go with my soft because it's all, you've memorized it. But yeah, I do set up templates, and yeah, it's really helpful. It really cuts down the time. You once you've searched and found those 3 bass parts or 3 keyboard parts or 3 guitar things. Don't search for them again. Write them down or in whatever way you want to design a template. And that really saves hours off of each cue of knowing exactly where you're going to go. Now, having said that, I do a lot of CDs. In fact, mostly what I'm doing now for publishers are entire CDs of genres. And I do have publishers that don't want, he used the exact same instruments on 6 of those cues.
Right.
So I try to mix it up and make it sound like they're all in the same ballpark, but it's not just me repeating myself over and over again. So I pull different samples there.
I'm a little amazed sometimes. I'll go check out a library to reference a certain genre, or maybe we've just started working with the library and we want to get familiar with their catalog and kind of where their quality bar is, that sort of stuff. And sometimes I will bump into a library that in a certain genre, like rock, let's say, they've got 3 composers that do rock and they each do a ton of rock because they're all really good. And I'm sure the library is like, I might as well go back to the well and keep using these same guys. But I think that at some point they oversaturate those guys, especially when you see 90% of the rock is done by 3 guys and there might be like 100 cues in there. You would think they would vary a little bit, but I think they go for what's tried, tested, and true and easy. And
people that they can, you've made this point a bunch of times, but I think it's really important. People that they can work with and they can trust, and that they know aren't, they're not the stereotypical flaky musician. They know the stuff's going to be there. It's going to be there on time. Man, that's to me, that's just so important. And I think there's a bunch of people out there that are way better than me, but I make sure one thing I know I can do as good as anybody is be on time, do what I say I'm going to do. Do, if I can make up for my lack of musicality by being a responsible person, so I think that's really important. And I think that the publishers, the library owners, talk amongst themselves. They know who's being responsible and who's not. So that's really important.
I completely agree. Part of your job is to make their life easy.
Yeah.
And if you can do that for them, it's like going out on a date that goes well. You go out for a second date, because it's comfortable
Yep.
and it feels good.
Yeah.
I'm scanning because we're very limited on time for this segment, for the A block, trying to sound all like a TV producer here. People always ask me, what genres of instrumental cues get used most often? Have you anecdotally or statistically noted that?
From what I've heard, the genres that get used the most are two of the genres that I don't do any of, and that would be hip hop and EDM. I at least I know those get used a lot. I don't know if that's the most, but I don't do. I've done a little bit of hip hop, but yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Which genres have done best for you?
Certainly, man, there's a lot that have done well for me here in the last few years. Thank you, Taxi. Um, Dinner Jazz is working now. Dramedy has certainly done well. The Southern rock stuff that I did back because of the Duck Show, the Duck Dynasty was so big for a cable show. And I think there were a few taxi, maybe there were 3 or 4 taxi members that were doing in the beginning, in the first 3 seasons, we were probably doing, 60% of the music on that show. And so I just got a lot of offers for that. So I've done a ton of that, but now, man, it's just wide. I've had success with the indie rock, with solo piano, classical piano. Just did a flamenco guitar project that I didn't even know it was flamenco. I thought it was flamengo, like pink flamingo. That's but yeah, it's broadening. It's getting wider. So yeah, what have I had most success in? It's hard to tell now. I'm not sure. You get to a point, at the beginning, you're looking at every cue sheet and you're trying to listen to your music on the shows. But then as you grow and get more publishers and more placements, and the placements start happening not just every month, but every week, but every day, it's just, I spend less time thinking about that and more just creating and just trying to create more music and keep up with the opportunities that I have. So
that's a common statement. I hear that a lot from our more developed members, people who are a little further down the road than people who are just starting out. That, yeah, in the beginning they were counting and tracking the numbers and how many cues do I need out in the wild, and how long does it take before a cue after it's signed makes you money, worrying about all the statistical stuff when they just should have been cranking out more music.
Yeah. Even sometimes I recently had a cut on Big Show, Dancing with the Stars, and my wife said, "Well, what did it sound like?" I said, "I don't know. I haven't listened to it. I don't know." And it's not that I don't want to. It's just I'm in the business of creating music, and so I'm creating music all the time, and I do have a lot of deadlines with publishers, and I'm trying to keep up. So yeah, there may be a time when usually the bigger shows or a movie or something, I'll go eventually and try to listen to what it was, but yeah, how you can't keep up.
Several of our more successful members, and I define success as they're making somewhere between like a couple $1,000s a year and a couple $100,000 a year. Obviously, as the number gets bigger, there are fewer people making that kind of money, but people, members who are getting deals and getting placements and on a regular basis seem to tell me anecdotally that they find that the simpler stuff they do, or sometimes it's even simpler mixes, they may have created a rock thing that, sounds like a record. It's a full-on production, but maybe it's stems or an alt mix that's just bass drums and a chicken picking guitar part that gets used a lot. Have you found that simpler stuff tends to get placed more often?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I often think of, we do our full cues with whatever melody I do put on it, whether it's guitar, keyboard, saxophone, whatever it is. To me, that in part, I just think of it, well, that's what's going to sell the cue. And then usually they're going to use it, and they're going to pull that melody, they're going to use the underscore. I'd say 7 times out of 10 they're going to use the underscore, a simpler mix of it. But a lot of times I think you do have to have that full mix to sell it, so that it jumps off the track and they go, yeah, this is the right mood. And they go, oh no, that melody doesn't work with the dialogue, let's rip that off and use the underscore. So yeah, the simpler stuff. And I tend to produce simply anyway. I mean, I'm much more of a keyboard player than a guitar player. So often when I play a keyboard track, I'll go back and I'm just weeding stuff out because I've got way too many notes. Luckily, I'm not a gifted guitar player, so I can't play too many notes. And I think that really benefits me in a lot of ways. My guitar parts are relatively simple, and they tend to work but yeah, totally. Simple is better.
It's a big mental adjustment for musicians when they get into doing cues for film and TV, that a lot of people think that you get chosen or get a placement in a scene because you're an amazing musician, an amazing guitar player, an amazing composer. It's all about, I'm really, really good. And I would contend that the definition of good in that context is, how well does your music work in scenes? It's not about being Jimi Hendrix. It's not about being Yo-Yo Ma. It's not about being Hans Zimmer. Certainly, maybe in the context of big feature films, but not in the context of a reality show. Yeah. So, sometimes it's just making stuff that's more usable.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's all of us musicians that spent years and years trying to, all the musicians coming up are trying to be Eddie Van Halen, or the keyboard players are trying to be Bill Evans or Oscar Peterson or whoever. You spend all these years trying to be as fast as you can, and then you get into the professional scene, and everybody tells you, even as a musician, no, now play tastefully. Don't play every note. Yeah, play. And I think the same thing with doing cues. It's such a tendency to, let me buy every piece of software that I can. I've got all these great sounds and all these virtual instruments, and man, I want to use them all because they all sound great. No, now bring taste into it. Weed a little bit of that out there. Make it a little more simple. You make sure the mood is first in cue writing. So.
I say it all the time in this show, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. That applies to so many things in life.
Sounds like my wife saying that. Yeah.
Or something that parents say to kids too, because once you hand them the keys for their first solo outing with the car, just because you can doesn't, that car can do 120 miles an hour doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to actually listening to some examples of cues that you've done. I'm guessing that you and Bria have worked out which those are, or which of those they are. And do you want to tell us what the first one is? Do a little setup.
Does Bria have them in a particular order, or
is anyone in particular order, Bria?
I have them just in the order that they're in so I have Surf's Up, Puppy Chase, Haystack Fever, and Slightly Askew.
Surf's Up, Puppy Chase, Haystack Fever, and what was the last one?
Slightly Askew.
Slightly Askew.
Let's flip those upside down and start with Slightly Askew, which is and all of these, to your point, all of these are really simple. All of these are simple. Anybody can do them. The Slightly Askew one is a dramedy piece that's been used in a bunch of I think I've had 40 placements on this cue, a bunch of shows. But it's very simple. Anybody can do it. It's just piano, pizzicato strings. I can't remember what else is in it. I have to hear it again. But
Are there?
yeah.
Any, I was going to ask you if there are any key points that people should be listening for, but you know what? Let's just you can talk after. And
Okay.
do I need to play the entire cue, or
No. And if any of these, just the first 30 or 40 seconds is fine.
does that give us enough time to hear a B section if it's in there and that sort of stuff?
Probably, yeah. If you want to hear the B section, probably 50 seconds or so.
All right.
50.
Sounds cool. So start with Slightly Askew. Wasn't he Richard Nixon's vice president?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
His golf game.
Go ahead.
That's it. That's as simple as it gets. I mean, everybody listening now is just going, what? I can do that. What do you mean that works?
Yes.
Yeah, that does work.
And do that a lot and do it well, and you too can make a six-figure income. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen. I saw somebody in the chat room mention that, oy vey, where's my dreidel? I'll be right back. I happen to have a visual aid. There's your dreidel, Paul. It's right there. I'm the only TV host that keeps a dreidel handy for such an occasion. All right. What's up next?
Let's do Haystack Fever. That was a Southern rock thing. One of the first ones I did for the Duck Show, and it's been used in maybe 5 shows. So, yeah, Southern rock.
Here we go. Haystack Fever. By the way, that ending you just heard, bam, that in the vernacular is called a sting. A sting out, a stinger. It could be called a button ending. It could be called a buttoned ending. It could be called a non-faded ending. All of those things technically apply to what you heard. And the cool part is you could just take that down and just cut that right on the downbeat, the place where the pick first hits the string and make that a cue, because that could be used for something like the Duck Dynasty guys walked in the house and somebody slammed a door, boom, door slams, boom, to punctuate the moment, right?
Yeah, and it's so important to have those stings at the end. even with this one, a lot of times it was used in a variety of ways where they'll play like that first two measures, and then they'll just cut that in. So they'll go dan 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 bomb, and then on to the next scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to have the stingers on those.
Yeah, a fade really doesn't have a lot of use in the world that we collectively live in. And frankly, it doesn't have much use in the radio world anymore. It used to.
Yeah.
Back in the days of long intros for DJs to set up something or talk about an act coming to town for a concert. And then fades would give them time to talk about the concert, upcoming concert again. But that stuff doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
What do you want to hear next?
There's one called Puppy Chase.
I love this one.
And this is it's a tension track, but when the publisher, I was talking to the publisher, this was specifically done originally for a kids TV show, and actually an ant that had animals in it called Lucky Dog, and they wanted tension. They needed tension in there because they're rescuing a lot of dogs, and they're taking rescuing them, and then they're taking them to the vet, and the dog may have been wherever out in the streets. The dog was in the streets for a while. And so it's a tense time because they want to make sure they can take care of these puppies. But so I asked the publisher, well, how do you make a tension track that's in a happy for a kids show that does so they don't cry? He said, well, use all the rhythm you're doing and put marimba in it. Just said marimba makes you smile, and then don't use minor notes. Just try to stay away from that third of every chord. So yeah, this is an example of a tension track with marimba in it, so that's kid friendly, because we don't want kids crying when they're watching their show, or their moms will turn off the TV. Their dads might turn off the TV too. I want to be politically correct. So yeah, I'm babbling.
No, it's great information.
Puppy Chase.
Ever so slightly changing the melody here to keep it interesting and moving forward.
Yeah. In case they want to use more of it.
All right.
With a stinger.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like Xanax for children.
Yeah.
Let's talk about tension for a minute, because it's a very popular genre with our members. A very popular genre. It gets requested a lot from the companies that use us as a resource. And there's several kinds of tension. Let's talk about the various kinds of tension. I have a really crappy memory, so I won't remember them all, and I'm hoping that you remember more than I do. But it could be, minor orchestral stuff, like something terrible is going to happen. What are some of the other options?
Yeah, I think, well, there's so many music genres that could make tension. You could have metal-oriented tension, hip-hop, urban oriented tension, certainly the kids tension like this. You can have drone. There was a movie about a movie on a few years ago. I think it was called The Social Network, And what's his name from Nine Inch Nails did the soundtrack. Reznor, I'm
Trent
spacing on
Reznor.
his name. And some of the tension that he has in there is just this drone that's almost doing nothing, but somehow he makes it have tension. It's there's not rhythm going in some of the earlier scenes of there. Yeah, and on and on. I mean, almost anything you could probably think of. I don't know what all the genres are. I just 4 weeks ago finished doing some tension cues for a library, and they. Yeah, actually, I don't know how detailed I should be here on that, but it was a particular type of tension that they wanted, and so I researched it and found what other people did in that genre of tension, and figured out how to do it. But yeah, all different kinds of tension, and I always tell people if they're wondering, well, what should I do for tension? What should I do for this time of music? You can actually go online to some of the big libraries and go in their search engines and listen to, where the top bar is on certain genres. And I often do that to go, okay, where's the bar? Where does this have to be? And I'm often turned on to a lot of different kinds of styles, just going and searching some of the libraries that have their search function online. So I tell people, just go do that and listen.
Also, watch shows. I mean, primarily reality shows, because like I'd say the average reality show has 75 to 100 cues used in it. They may be used for 3 seconds up to a minute and a half and anywhere in between, but they use a lot of cues. So you get the benefit of understanding how they're used, not just what gets used.
Yeah. Yeah, those cue sheets will come through for those reality shows, and I mean they may have 60 cues in one show, that they've used anywhere from 3 seconds to 35 seconds for their mood. So yeah, a lot of usage in reality shows, cues.
Oh, by the way, you mentioned Trent Reznor before. We should also mention Atticus Ross is his cohort in that stuff. And wow, yeah, those two guys are a study.
Yeah.
They deserve an entire weekend. I'm not kidding when I say you could do 2 12-hour days back to back of just researching them and listening to their stuff, because they've created a genre on their own that's emulated by so many people. It's very cinematic tension, I guess, is a good way to describe it. What do you have? What's the next one you want to listen to?
Okay, yeah, the last one. I brought this cues that are time capsule cues. This is actually a surf rock cue, but time capsule cues I don't find are used that much, but when they need that, they need it, and nothing else will do. If you have a scene that's a 1961 surf scene, they need surf music. If it's a doo-wop thing or a Motown thing or a disco thing, if they're having a flashback in a TV show or a film or even advertising, when they need that, nothing else will do. And so I've done surf rock I hadn't done any of it before one library approached me about doing some of it, and like everything else, I just went back and studied Dick Dale and the Ventures and those groups from back then, and tried to figure out what were their guitars doing. Now I can't play at all like a Dick Dale. I think that's the right name. Dick Dale. I can't play at all like that. But what can I do? And what was his guitar? That springy reverb kind of sound they used, and you listen to some of the old drums there, and now we would say, oh, that sounds horrible, because it's probably mono recording and one mic picking up the whole kit or something. But okay, so how do I capture that vibe? But I have to produce in stereo. I have to do that. So anyway, just for the members' sake, there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, if you think you have a knack for doing a doo-wop tune, yeah, they're not going to be placed at all like a hip hop or a EDM thing. But when they need a doo-wop song or a surf rock tune, they need it, and that's what they have to have. So anyway, that's the long explanation for why I brought this, and you only need to play about it's you get the cue in about 30 seconds. You know what it is.
All right, let's have a listen. B section.
Yeah. Then it just does the same thing over again.
I love it.
And it really was a study because so many of those groups back then played such a square guitar, such a kind of a tinky square. Even the great players were playing way different back then. So to try to capture all those moods in some way that was close to being authentic, was, and there again, it's just, as we talked earlier, listening. Analyze every part and then try to do it.
And you made the point earlier, I want to elaborate a little bit, which is if you're doing something that dates back to a certain era, it would be a fool's errand to try and make that guitar sound amazing. You want to make it amazingly similar to the era, but not amazing by today's fidelity standards. So, man, oh man, do you remember which guitar you used for that?
I think I was just using my Strat, Fender Strat, for that, and I don't think I pulled one of my amps in. I think I was just using. Probably put it through a pod or one of those kidney pods and tried to find the right reverbs for it. It sounded authentic, and nobody sitting at home watching a TV show when that cue comes on that's what many musicians who aren't making money doing this do not yet understand, which is, he should have used what's the Fender guitar that I can't remember the model, but it's famous for surf stuff. Is it the Telecaster or something? I don't know.
No, somebody will get it. I guarantee you, Mojo Bone will blurt it out in a second. Mojo, what was the Fender guitar that is so? Jaguar was one, but they're the
Mustang. Was it the Mustang?
No. Mojo must be making another drink because he's not responding. Jazzmaster. Jaguars, they had that sound. So I know people that would say, it doesn't sound as good as a Jazzmaster. No editor who's working on a reality show would ever say, I'm not going to use this cue because it doesn't sound 100%. It only sounds like 90% as good as a Jazzmaster, because they just don't give a damn. They're looking for the overall contextual vibe. Does it make you go to the beach when you're watching this scene? Is it reflective of that time period? Yes, it is. We have a winner. Well, and there's a lot of guitar players that wouldn't they wouldn't want to play something so rinky tink as that is, and they don't want to play in that square way. I can make it sound way better, and I'm like, okay, I'll make the money then. Go ahead, don't play it if you don't want to. That's right.
But it's gotta have that vibe.
I saw somebody commenting in the chat room, and I don't want to spend much time on this, but somebody named Eric E says, I had 40 things forwarded by taxi and no deals resulted from it, so I feel like I was scammed. And I see several people jumping on that comment. So if you guys would be so kind, everybody that has had deals happen as a result of taxi, and obviously I didn't tell anybody that they had to be in the room because I couldn't have anticipated this tonight. But why don't you just chime in with a +1 if you've ever had any deals result from taxi forwards. Because you know what, you could have been forwarded 40 times and there was other stuff that was more appropriate in the same batch of forwards, or the library solved the problem at the moment that they had run the listing. Shortly thereafter they solved the problem and they didn't need to sign the stuff. Yeah, so there you go, a long string of plus ones from people. Wow, some of these people, I had no idea that people have gotten that many deals. Yeah, you know, the secret to the whole thing is just keep putting it out there. It's like playing Johnny Appleseed. You got to keep putting those seeds out there, because sooner or later they will turn into trees and they will bear fruit. But if you get frustrated because you had 40 forwards and nothing happened, and you stop, then nothing can happen.
Yeah, well, and you know, to that point, I think I posted something on the taxi forum maybe a month ago. I had a queue that was used in a national ad, and when I didn't know about it, and I should have known about it because I got a check, a licensing check, maybe 6 months before the ASCAP statement. A nice number check, but I didn't look to see what it was for, and so I just got the check from the publisher, and you know, oh cool, and I put it in the bank, and then the ASCAP statement came, and I had 2040 placements of this. The ad was used on I think 40, almost 40 networks. But to that point, that particular queue, a queue called Pizzicato Pizza, because I use pizzicato strings, that queue had not been used. It had been sitting in a library for 10 years. And that was the first time it was used, and then it gets used on this ad. So you just keep yeah. To anybody that says, well, this I did all this and this didn't happen. Well, that's the game we're in. We just keep making music, and good stuff happens to those who keep working and keep at it. Over time, good stuff happens, and so
yeah. I said it at the top of the show. If you're fretting over the number of forwards and the number of placements that resulted and all that stuff, you're just hurting yourself. I know it's hard to believe, but you know, I'm not saying that as any sort of defense of Taxi. I'm saying it in defense of you guys, because we thrive when you thrive. It's mutually beneficial, and so that's why we take the time to do this show every week, why we put on the road rally, which you know, some years a lot of money comes out of my pocket because we don't get enough sponsors for the rally. We do all this stuff and hand it to our members on a silver platter because we're self-serving in that we want to see them. First of all, they're people like Dean that we just genuinely love, and we want to see them be successful because it's great working with great people. But you know, the more success Taxi has, the more success our members have, the more success the company has. So everybody wins. Yeah. Let's have a listen to some stuff that some of the viewers sent in.
Yeah.
What are we starting out with?
I have a song called On the Edge.
A song called On the Edge.
Sorry, a cue called On the Edge.
A cue called On the Edge. And Dean's going to comment about this stuff because people sent these in because they wanted to know, is there anything I could have done better? Is this one ready to go as it is? So let's not mention the names of the composers because sometimes people get a little embarrassed and we don't like to embarrass people. So Dean, let's have a listen and give us your thoughts.
Okay. Yeah.
I went to hit the applause button. When I picked up the clapping device, it hit the boo button. Sorry, I wasn't booing that. I just want to go on record, not a boo. I was looking for that button. I palmed it. I'm going to burn in hell for that. So, any observations or feedback on that one, Dino?
It was now. Please keep in mind that I can't hear real well on here, so I'm not getting a sonic quality. But there's a cool piece of work. If it were my piece, if I was producing that at the beginning that we had, I would have somehow kept that rhythm going through there, and whether that was instead of breaking it up quite so much, I would have da 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 da, and just grown that as the theme, because I loved all those other pieces, but it felt to me like we started on this groove here, and then I got stopped. So yeah, I would have somehow kept that rhythm going and just built upon that as the theme instead of maybe stopping it and changing. Although I thought it was cool.
I heard. I'm sitting close to the speaker, so
Okay.
I can obviously hear stuff that you can't in your cans a couple thousand miles away, but because the sound degrades over miles. I mean, degrades. Sorry.
Well, it's snowing here too, so that affects everything.
I'll tell you what, it's been getting so chilly here at night. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've got snow-capped mountains surrounding LA.
Wow.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It got down to like 36 degrees in my backyard last
Wow.
night. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, the synth sonically was not as wonderful as I'd like to have heard it in the speakers. I also kept asking myself, what's the emotion? And I was a little troubled by the fact that I had to search so much to try and find an emotion that it could be identified with, because you want to have your stuff be almost instantaneously identifiable as to the emotion, so that the end user can hear it and go, yeah, I need tension for that. Oh, that's clearly tension. This one didn't go there. Although I will say that I felt like this person is 75% of the way there with this cue. They clearly have an understanding, and they're on the path. They just haven't gotten to, they're not quite there. Pretty darn close.
Yeah. I think you're right on too. That's what I felt. I mean, I kind of knew they were going for tension, but yeah, where in that tension thing, and build it.
Yeah, it was on the tension spectrum, but it wasn't obvious where on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we have next, Bria?
We have, this one's called Tiptoe Through the Hood.
Tiptoe Through the Hood? Oh, man. Okay, Tiptoe Through the Hood. This is going to be great. All right.
Yeah. I loved it. I mean, from the get-go, I just thought it was a great dramedy piece in the hip hop genre, and could be used a lot of. Now, again, I can't hear the sonic quality of it, but yeah, I thought from what I'm hearing here, I thought it could be used a lot of places.
I
Yeah,
absolutely agree with you. Sonic quality was pretty darn good. If it would be probably classified as urban dramedy because it's
yeah,
got a hip hop beat to it. There
yep.
was something that sounded like it might have been a string part that was way back, like really far back in the mix with quite a bit of reverb that seemed a little distracting to me. I don't think it helped the cue a lot. So if it were my cue, I'd probably just mix that out. It almost sounded momentarily like a fire engine or some sort of siren
Uh,
going by. That's why I popped out my my earbud and it had to turn around and listen, but I couldn't identify what it was. But that was pretty darn good.
yeah, yeah. Good.
All right, Bev Niven wants to know what sonic quality is, and what atmosphere is. Bev, buy this book. I don't have time to explain it. And buy that book. What?
The links are in the description.
Oh, the links for the book are in the description below today's video. You know what else is in that video? The subscribe button. And do that. Just do it right now. I don't see the numbers going up. Come on, damn it. Anyway, all right, let's move on to a third one. What you got, Bria?
This one's called Steps Ahead.
This one's called Step Ahead. Poor Bria. She has to figure out if I'm bobbing my head because I like the piece or I'm going, yeah, we've heard enough. We can turn it off now. What say you, Dino?
Um, I liked it. From what I can tell, that it's a man. I was some of those home remodeling shows, home building shows. That type of stuff could be used for. Um, the thing that I'm curious about is the beginning guitar. That what I'm not sure it was guitar, but in my cans it sounded like guitar. Felt a little stiff to me. Like it felt like either it's a really, really accurate guitar player, um, but I would somehow try to unstiffen that up and make it sound either playing a real guitar or even what I do a lot of times, even as a guitar player, and maybe it was a harpsichord or some other sound that's not guitar. Um, but sometimes if I'm using a sample or using a virtual instrument that's a guitar, I'll actually take a real guitar and just do a slide now and then to make that feel a little bit more real, a little less stiff. That was the thing that jumped out a little bit to me at the beginning that I would want to massage a little bit, but I like the piece.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's a common trick by more experienced composers that if they're using a lot of MIDI-driven samples, virtual instruments, and the piece is starting to feel a little obviously quantized and you want to make it not sound quantized, the trick that everybody seems to do is just overdub a real instrument or two, because your humanity will come through. You are not a robot, and that will take the robotic aspect of the track and tamp it down a little bit and make it sound. If somebody with our experience, meaning Dean and I, if we have to listen and go, is that computer generated or a human, then you've accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
I like that last piece. I felt, as far as classifying it in a genre or ascribing a mood to it, certainly uplifting. It reminded me of Personal Victory. Take a movie where, it's a coming of age movie with like a 14-year-old that, just couldn't get it right during football tryouts. And then finally he pulls off something amazing and he gets a slot on the team and he's running home. He's running off the field and running home to tell his parents. That would be the music you would hear playing under him as he runs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personal Victory.
Yeah. No, that's right. I just watched an old movie called, I'd never seen it for some reason, called The Sandlot, where these kids are playing baseball. Sandlot, I think that's the name of it. And that would have worked at a couple places in that flick. Yeah, very, very kids coming of age.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
What's up next?
Moonrise on the Bayou.
Moonrise on the Bayou. Ooh, I love it.
Ooh, okay.
Dino, what say you?
Yeah. From what I was hearing, that's ready to go. I mean, I was hearing Bayou, rural, Delta, criminal, creeping around stuff. I love the slide. I love the simplicity of it. I don't know what you're hearing there, but that's what I was feeling.
Simplicity being the operative term, because for all the people who are not familiar with Taxi, not familiar with the land of doing cues, and they think that they've got to do this really, complex orchestral stuff that would compete with Hans Zimmer. No, you can earn a nice living doing really simple stuff like that with a couple of dobros. And look, just to show you the incredibly high production value of this show, we have visual aids. There you go. That would be the scene that music would be playing on.
Yeah. That
was actually Sunrise on the Bayou, but.
Yeah, and that took us from the get-go. That's where we were. It took us right to any one of those type of scenes. Very, very well done. Yeah.
That would work great in an off commercial. It just made me feel like there were mosquitoes all over the place because we were, in fact, on the bayou. All right.
Off. Deep
What's
woods off.
there you go. The really strong stuff.
This one's called Quarantine.
Quarantine. I love it.
Quarantine.
Good titles
Quarantine
today.
quarantine the mosquitoes, yeah.
That's right. All right. Let's have a listen to Quarantine. All right. What say you, sir?
Um, there's a couple things I loved about it. I love the riff. Dun, 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 dun. I love the groove. And I love that. I think I know, kind of the danger chase-ish thing they're going for. From what I'm hearing, I would probably want to massage. It's hard to tell what the strings are sounding like out there. In my cans, they sound a little stark. I'd want to massage those a little bit. And then the drum thing that came in, I would probably do something different in there. It seemed to take me away a little bit out of that group. Those are the initial things I thought of for it. But I love the composition. I love that riff. It's on its way, in my opinion.
I felt the same way. I felt like, okay, this person gets it. They're on the path, but they haven't quite nailed it yet. The strings sounded like what we were talking about earlier, just saying, okay, I'm going to use that string patch, dun, 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 without actually, doing anything to them. How would a string player play this? Would they be going that way? Would the bow be coming back this way? How would they attack it? Because the attack clearly wasn't that of real string players, or the articulations, I should say. The mix felt less than cohesive, and I know that's a very general and often overused term, but it just sounded like, okay, I've got this, and then I've got that, and then I've also got that, but I'm not really weaving them together. Here's a church, there's a steeple, open the door. Haven't done that in about 50 years. Anyway.
I get to do it. Yeah, weave them together.
Yeah, you try doing that and you end up flipping somebody off and just get in trouble for trying to do some innocent little kids thing, But again, it showed that this person's on the path. They understood. I will say that something not on a sonic or performance level so much, though, was there were parts of it that would make it hard to use because it sounded like it was scored to picture. Oh, here's this thing happening, and now we're going on to a different scene. So it was kind of like two pieces of music in one cue, and you got to keep it the same from top to bottom. Cohesive. Love that word. John Braheny taught me that word. I'd never heard it before I met John.
Cohesive.
Cohesive. Was that the last one?
There's one more.
We have one more. Let's have a listen.
This one's called Something Cold.
Something cold. Ooh. Sounds like a trip to the morgue. I love the comment in the chat room by Robert F.L. says, I love the ostinato bass. There's a phrase that no editor on a reality show will ever say while choosing music.
Ostinato bass.
Yeah. Wasn't that guy like on the swim team in, St. Mary's Academy or something? I don't know.
I think I learned that in college, but I can't. I have a blank section of college in my mind, so I don't remember. Ostinato bass.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I thought it started out so cool, that pulse, and it took me right to a mood, that dump thing. So I thought that was really cool. It took me right to the place. I would have kept that going and just weaved stuff around it. And if it were me, I'd take that hit out of there, because that sounded more like something an effects person might put in into a film, instead of, it would break up the scene unless the editor exactly wanted it at that place. But I thought when it started out, man, they're really onto something pretty cool and spooky and scary and tense in that way. But
I'd like to compliment all the people who submitted. First of all, it takes courage and guts to have your stuff played, on a show with 2 million viewers. Oh yeah, take off some zeros. Anyway, it does. I'm really grateful that you guys submitted your music so that others can learn from you learning. And also I want to mention, I'm really surprised in a very good way about great titles on every one of these cues that we played. And that really, you might not think that something as simple as creating a great title for your piece matters, but if you're a video editor working on a reality show and you've been given 5,000 cues broken up by different genres or moods from the music supervisor has given you those buckets of cues, they actually call them bins, and you're looking for something, because let's say, what was this one called, the last one? Cold something?
Something cold.
Something cold. So if you're working on a procedural crime show, and you got a scene where they're going into the lab and they're sliding out a cadaver and they're taking a blood sample and looking at it under the microscope, and you're going down your list of 300 possible tension cues for that scene, and you see something cold, your eye as the editor is going to go to that and go, I'll bet you that's going to work. And you hear it and go, okay, so telegraphing what your cue is going to be about with your title without overdoing it is a very good method for getting more of your work used.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are exactly at 5:30. We've hit the nail on the head. But before we go, you can learn more about Dean at deankrippaehne.com, and his last name is a bitch to spell. I've known the guy for like 15 or 20 years. I consider him a close friend, and I still have to look up his name. It's Krippaehne.
That was close.
Put a link in the description.
Yeah, Bria's going to put a link in the description under the video for all you folks that are watching the show after the fact. And I said this at the top of the show. Look, I don't make a penny. Dean didn't ask me to do this. I've read these books. I actually got a stack of the books and made everybody on our staff read them, so that even the people who answer the phones and do, general member services stuff, if they get hit with a question, they're going to be better equipped to answer the question if they've read this book, Demystifying the Genre, and this book called Demystifying the Q. They're both incredibly, they're written in the style in which Dean speaks. He and I are both fans of, why try and fake it? Be who you are on paper and musically. Just be who you are. Hopefully you're not a jerk, which Dean is clearly not. And the books are written in a style that makes you feel like you're hanging out with that dude. And he's just like your best buddy telling you where it's really at. And so get the books if you haven't already read them, and I'm convinced that a lot of Taxi members have already read them. But for those of you who have not, it's an investment well worth making. And Dean, I can't thank you enough. I know we make it look easy on the show, but this required like an hour of Dean's time to work with Bria, who I appreciate, Bria. Setting up the split screen, we finally got it working, and I'm so thrilled because this opens up a new chapter for Taxi TV, being able to pull in some of our favorite members from around the world and having them help everybody else learn more. And Dean, such a great teacher, such a great speaker, and a great guy on top of it all. So thank you.
Thank you.
I will see you sooner than later. Didn't I tell you that I have some reason I want to come up there for something? Can't remember what it is now, but there's a reason that I need to get up there. And when I do, you will be the second person to know, because when I remember the reason, there's going to be one person in front of you.
But, yeah, you're coming to Seattle. You're coming up here.
Yeah, okay. And I'll invite myself over for a bowl of your chili. How's that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Dean is famous for his chili.
Yeah.
So thank you to the folks in the chat room for watching, and our viewers that aren't in the chat room. And see you guys next week. Do you remember what next week's show is? Next week is Martin Tichy?
I don't know. I think that's what you told me.
I think you might be right. I think next week is Martin Tichy, who is a great orchestral composer. And he also is the marketing guy for Vienna Symphonic Library. And he and Chuck Henry is actually going to be our keyboardist next week. They're going to demonstrate I can never remember the name. Do you remember the name of the product?
Vienna String Library, the Smart Orchestra.
The Smart Orchestra from Vienna yeah, whatever. I was really good up until the last 2 minutes. Anyway, yeah, don't miss next week's show. Dino, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Stay warm and dry up there, and we will see all of you folks. Where's the band? There's the band. Let's see all of you folks next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Woo-hoo! Bye, you guys. Thanks, Dean.